If you would please stand before our meeting begins, I'd like to ask Ms. Carleen Parker to lead us in the pledge and Ms. Charlotte to pray for us.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for your many blessings. We ask that you would give our commissioners wisdom. We thank you for our community. We pray for our men and women in the armed forces, that you would watch over them, protect them. And as we enter the Thanksgiving series, please help us remember how fortunate, how blessed we have been by you. And ask that you would please forgive us when we fail you. For these things we ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we'll call the regular meeting of the City Commission to order. Tuesday, November 5th. Welcome, everyone. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which consists of the regular meeting minutes of October 15th.
Motion to approve, Mayor.
The motion by Commissioner Ashbrook to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a second by Commissioner Lowry. Any discussion, additions, corrections? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, building department, we don't have that this time. Long-term recovery, Jim, someone talked to you about that today?
Yes, sir, we did hear from today. They plan to give us an update at our next meeting.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Ashbrook, you want to talk about PSJRA? Anything new on that?
We voted on our budget today. We're still trying to determine with the funds that we have between a restroom and or a splash pad. So we're working through those issues. We made the item in the agenda a little bit wider. Core Park renovations or updates. But we're working through that. We did vote this morning at the TDC to solidify that $25,000 commitment for a splash pad. And the other thing that we discussed, and actually we were told to talk to Mr. Jake actually, about the parking in the alleyways. And I think the suggestion was that the police department could come up with some kind of signage. If you guys have a list of signage that might help keep those trucks out of the alleys and on the side roads, that would be helpful. That was what we discussed today. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for the PSJRA? Okay, Mr. Attorney, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see in the packet, there's a letter from Mr. Novak, the county attorney, related to the 10th Street Ballpark funding to the TDC. That letter speaks for itself. What I'd like to address is what I've looked at and reviewed. Among the documents I have reviewed, including what Mr. Novak provided, and if I could back up, the TDC and the county have no statutory obligation to produce funds to the city. So the next thing I need to see, if there's an obligation, would be a contractual right that the city may have. In my review, I found no interlocal agreement or any other agreement other than a intent. So with that being said, you look to quasi-contract. One of the things under quasi-contracts would be detrimental reliance. If a individual or entity makes a promise and that promise induces action on the other side, there you may be able to make an argument for detrimental reliance. In speaking with Mr. Anderson in my review, I'm not aware of any action the city took based off of that promise or from the county, meaning there was no contractual indebtedness by the city based off that obligation. There's no expenditures of funds toward that obligation made by the county, and thus I don't see a quasi-contract either. With that being said, I don't think that the city would have a very strong argument to be made that the county's obligated to release those funds that were discussed through the park subcommittee to the city directly.
Okay. Okay, questions for the attorney, comments, anything, anyone? Okay, we'll just move on from that and look toward the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, old business, government complex grant update.
Yes, sir, Mayor. We continue to look for property and reviewing our options at this point in time. I believe you actually had a few conversations with folks coming up as far as meetings on those. I'll let you elaborate on those, Mayor, if you want to.
I talked to George Gonzalez of St. Joe Company to see if they had any property they may be willing to sell to us, donate to us, or what have you. I haven't heard. I sent him a text today to see if there was any update, any movement on it. I have not heard from him, but he's usually pretty good about getting back to us, and so I'll just we'll have to wait for the next meeting, and I'll push a little more. But the area that I asked him about specifically was the area over by the railroad shop, the old baseball field. It's between Avenue A and David Langston Drive. It looked like a good centrally located spot to me. I didn't really think they would have any use for it commercially, because I think their intent is to do commercial on the other side of Langston Drive, between Langston Drive and the highway. So hopefully they'll see it our way. Questions, anybody on that? Okay. Next item.
Yes, sir. The next item we discussed briefly at our last meeting, white goods and C&D materials. Met with Commissioner Langston yesterday, and I'll let him elaborate on what we're trying to do and how the process we're trying to do it.
Well, we rode around basically on the north side on Port St. Joe yesterday. Can everybody hear me?
No.
I guess I have to speak up. Well, we rode around. Thank you. We rode around yesterday on the north side through the alleys and in different residences, and we saw where it's getting a little better, but the white goods and furniture and things of that nature, it's starting to pile. It's starting to increase and pile up continuously. So what we decided was we're going to have to start putting a little pressure on the residences and let the code enforcement officer do his job. I mean, you may get upset about the extra money that you have to pay, but that's just the way it's going to have to be in order to help us get this problem solved, because it's a huge problem. And I know people say that we don't know who's dumping this. They're coming by my house, and no, we're not even going to go there, because if somebody's dumping something by on your property or by your property, you have to see it. Somebody has to see it. They may not be reporting it, but I hate to put it in the residents' hands like this, but the city is really struggling trying to get this stuff cleaned up, and we're going to be going around trying to get some of this stuff cleaned up before the holidays. So all I can say is let's just try to stop taking stuff outside of your house and throwing it out there, expecting the city to pick it up without you having been charged any type of money, because we have a budget and we have to comply by the budget that we have, and we're looking for extra money to help us, but we haven't found that money yet. Once we do, then things will change. But right now, we're going to do our best, the best we can, to get this stuff picked up and moved, and hopefully we'll get some help from the citizens around.
Thank you, Commissioner Langston.
Anybody got comments on that? Thank you very much. Anybody? Okay. Next item.
Yes, sir. The NERDA Stormwater Grant. If you'll turn over to page 8, we did have a conference call with DEP and with the Water Management District last week. We have a public notice here where we're going to kick off the actual grant process to take public input before we begin the process. So we have that scheduled. If you turn over to page 8, it's actually going to be held on December the 3rd before our regular scheduled meeting at 5 o'clock here.
Okay. Good deal. Any questions on that? So it will be advertised, I'm sure, on the web page and
yes, in the newspaper as well.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay, looks like next one is mine, Restore Act Pot 3 funding. Out of Pot 3, the Deepwater Horizon Consortium money, this year we've been allocated $500,000. It was earmarked for the purchase of the ESAD sewer system at St. Joe Beach, which I think we determined that that wasn't the best use of it at the present time. And I have talked to Warren Yeager, who's chairman of the consortium, as well as Chairman Quinn, about repurposing that money and using it to help us complete the CDBG sewer project in North Port St. Joe, specifically on Battle. I believe that's right. Was it Battle? Battle Street. So we're waiting to hear from them. They'll have to bring, the county commission will have to vote on that, and then they'll go, they'll make a request to the consortium, and hopefully they will allow us to use that money for that purpose. So that's what I'm hoping to do. We got questions or comments?
How do we find out who the members of the consortium are?
I don't know.
I'd like to just know who they are.
I'll find out about it. I don't know.
Because
Yeah.
it might help to reach out to them.
Yeah, it's a representative from every county affected, 8 counties affected, I'm sure, but I don't know specifically who they are. Yeah. Okay, any comments, questions? Okay, let's go to new business.
Mayor, before we move on, do we want to send a letter? Is that something you want to formally do as a board, to send a letter to the county commission asking that money be transferred over to the CDBG project with Battle Street, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate, and not just ask them to repurpose it for the use of completing the CDBG grant in North Port St. Joe, something of that nature.
Yeah, we better have it in writing.
We learned. Okay.
All right, new business FERDAP committee. There was a discussion at our last meeting as far as trying to come up with a park committee. I think Ms. Beebe had actually brought some information about interest in the parks and trying to do some revitalization of our parks. What we gave to you was our FERDAP committee, maybe a good framework for you to start with. You could add members to that, change it around, however the board want to do. We thought that was kind of a good starting point because they are working on the grant portion of it. But you may want to say that, hey, we want to have a report quarterly, semi-annually, I'm not sure. But that way they're kind of looking at all your parks to give you back recommendations, not on grants necessarily, but also parks in general. Something to think about.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I like that idea. I think we have a recreation group. Typically they went after grants, but they only met when there was a grant out there. If that committee that stands currently would be willing to meet on a quarterly basis and come up with some ideas, I think we've got it in place. We can add or subtract. I'm not sure that everyone here would want to be that involved, but we can sure reach out.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
There's 10 right now, it looks like.
I just think we need to reach out to each individual one on this committee, that's presently on it, and make sure they're still willing to serve. I would certainly think that Ms. Beebe would be added to it. It would be a good addition for her to be on there. So if she would like to be on there, we'd like her, I think, to be part of that. You like her? Okay, anybody got an objection?
I'd like to try and go ahead and cover the different sports. I think, first of all, it's a great idea to activate this committee and at the same time merge it with the committee that we were asked to create. But while we're doing that, why not make sure we have a liaison representing tennis, softball, pickleball. We can even include the garden club if we wanted to. But we might as well have a group that represents a voice for each of the activities. I mean, you're not going to capture them all, but we're moving forward with disc golf. We could get someone involved in that program to be on that committee. And I think it's a good idea to first find out who wants to come off of it and then replace them and add additional names to it.
Yeah. Mayor, is the FERDAP committee formed by ordinance? Is that what regulates how many people? If so, we probably just need to change that and make that statement in the ordinance that says we want representatives from these items. Jim, do you know?
I believe these are actually appointed by the board, so my recommendation is that anybody you want to appoint to board, I would do as a formal motion in there, and anybody you want to take off the same way, and we can also reach out to the current members as well.
There's no language limiting the number of members or how it's structured.
I don't think that, probably, most of the time you want at least 5, but I'll ask Mike, but I don't think there's any requirement from FERDAP.
Not that I'm aware of, and historically, Clay and I have just been city staff members of, not actually board members or on that committee. We just serve as the city liaison and staff to get things done that the committee decides. So typically, so it's really only 7.
Okay.
Okay, well, with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Ms. Beebe to this committee as it stands written today. And then we can call out to the others and subtract, and then come back and say we've got X number of vacancies and appoint from there.
It'll work.
Okay. So is there a motion to appoint Ms. Beebe?
Motion to accept.
Second for discussion.
Okay.
Can your motion include that we call these people and reach out in case we lose some through attrition?
Absolutely. Yes. You going to include that in your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second stand.
Second stand. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 5-0.
You didn't ask for public comment.
Okay, I'll open it up for comment.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at this list, Jesse Pippin, Missy Ramsey, Rachel Cruz, Carrie Williams, Glenn Davis, Mike LaCour, Clay Smallwood, Brian Marshall, Claude Thomas. I don't know anything really about these people. One of the things that, of course, got us into a little bit of a between citizens and elected officials was the fact that, you know, people that live in the neighborhoods that are next to these parks and stuff, not involving them. And I don't know, you know, how active these people are in their neighborhoods. I don't know if they abut any of the parks. It just seems to me that we're going down a similar path without input. I think there's so much opportunity. You look at a place, you know, a lot of cities, and you have passive areas and you have active areas. And you look at what the capabilities are based off of the borders as well as the parking and the traffic and everything in order to find the best fit and the best balance between passive and active. And I would just ask that, you know, I know I'm not the most popular girl in the neighborhood, but amongst y'all, that's fine. But I have served on other park boards. I've served this community all on my own dime. And there are other people that have done the same thing. They care about their neighborhoods and care about those parks. And I would ask that y'all kind of open up your scope a little bit and think about that.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I'm sure the rest of us do too. And I think there will be opportunities here because this is quite, it's some names on here quite old. And
Yes,
I feel like there's probably 2 or 3 that probably will not want to serve. So be patient with us, and I think you'll have, you and any others that are interested will have opportunity.
And we just appointed someone, I believe, unless Miss Beebe has moved. Do you live adjacent to the 10th Street ball fields?
Well, yes.
So-
Yeah, and I know where Miss Beebe lives.
Yeah.
I'm quite well aware, but she lives on Marvin, and you have all the way up to the other end on Woodward, that whole swath is huge. And so again, I'm well aware, and I appreciate all the things that Miss Phoebe does for the garden club, etc. We just need to strike that right balance. That's all I'm asking. I don't think that's too unreasonable.
Not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
When do they normally meet?
We haven't met so long, Chester, that'll be up to the committee and they'll set the time and come up, sir.
Robert Branch, on respect to what's already been said about what's going on with the Frisbee golf, y'all made mention at last meeting that y'all were going to contact the neighbors. Y'all had decided a forest park around the lake. Is that where y'all were going to plan on starting the Frisbee golf?
I believe that's correct. Is that correct, Mr. Grant?
That's correct.
And y'all,
Mike, yeah.
That's correct.
and y'all made the statement that y'all would contact the neighbors in that area. Have they already been
As
contacted?
far as I know.
We put it on Facebook and we also put it on the city website, yes.
But as far as that, a lot of people don't use Facebook or the website. I mean, I'm just, but you contacted them and then after you made the decision, then contact what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I had. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Any other comments on the FERDAP committee? All right, next item.
Then you got a first and a second on it.
Oh, on Ms. Beebe, that's right. I thought we did. Thought we did, and then we had comment. But we'll.
You're correct, you're correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Next
sir.
item.
The next item we had in reference to the tennis court repairs. We're moving through our parks, making repairs. One item that we have been brought to our attention several times is the fence around the tennis court. We got a quote for you today over there to put the fence back together. I know we have a lot of other things that need to be done, from the pavilion to, we've talked about pickleball, to a lot of other things, and we also have it out to bid for the city pier. But this will be specifically to put the fence back together for the tennis court. That's one of the items moving forward.
Yeah, I'll just take the lead on that, and then we'll open up discussion. Items in the city that need repair from the storm, that we've gotten insurance money for, that's under the city manager's bid threshold. I would ask that we let him do his job and let's get them prepared so we can show the folks we're making some progress. And some small items like that, like the tennis court fence and like the picnic pavilion down there, I thought would get us started in that direction. So I asked him to get some quotes and see if we could move forward on some of that.
Yeah, I have no problem with replacement.
I'm completely fine with that.
Speak up, go ahead.
Martin. Nope, sorry.
I just want to mention the tennis court behind Washington Recreation Center. I think it doesn't have to be a tennis court. I mean, if we could find something else to make it out of, shuffleboard, anything like that would draw something positive for the people to do sometimes. And also I mentioned it last meeting, the dugouts and on the softball side, it really needs to be fixed. So if we consider doing something to that tennis court over behind the Washington Rec and the basketball goals over under the pavilion, they really need to be looked at also. If we could take some time and just see if we can do something to improve that tennis court and that basketball area. But I did speak with Commissioner Quinn, and anything that any type of help that we need, he's willing to help. So Jim, just reach out to him and see what we can do.
I think that's a good idea. Probably what, John, 4 or 5 years ago, you and I went over there and looked at the tennis courts to see we could convert them to, we talked about 8 or 10 pickleball courts. They're in pretty bad shape, there are a lot of cracks and so forth in them and weeds growing up, but we might could retrofit it for something besides tennis or pickleball. So maybe we can figure something out.
We could just repave it and put picnic tables and a couple of tennis balls up, you know.
Right.
Something for the kids to do and enjoy.
And the basketball issue should be a pretty easy fix.
Yeah, that'll actually be fixed this week, Commissioner. We've already got the goals and everything. We're just trying to get the time to get there, but that'll happen this week. We have looked at the dugouts as well, which we'll do this, this winter. So we've already looked at those 2 items for it.
I appreciate it.
And I'd like to comment, I do have a meeting Thursday with a tennis court contractor who's coming through to look at the county's courts. They're trying to rebid it, and I asked him to come over and look at our 2 courts to assess the cracking damage on the courts and give us some guidance as to how we might structure a bid to repair those tennis courts as well. So I'm meeting with a tennis court contractor Thursday morning to take a look at those surfaces.
Commissioner Hoffman, you had something?
To add to what Mike had just brought up, I invited myself to that meeting Thursday because I had been approached about expanding the tennis courts down at Frank Pate and somehow or another adding additional or actually starting new pickleball courts. So I'm going to get with the, if it's the pleasure of the commission, to also get a price on 4 pickleball courts, probably 2 on the south end of the tennis court, 2 on the north side. I went down and measured it yesterday. We got plenty of room. The only thing that needs to be moved is the power pole that's about to fall. I think it needs to be replaced anyway, but that would be something that I'll bring some prices and we can go from there.
Yeah, I think any way we can improve what we have is wonderful, but nobody's got any problem with going ahead and repairing what we have. The actual tennis court.
No, it needs to be done. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. Commissioner Langston, too, you had a valid point. We need to look at the tennis courts and other things. If kids are not utilizing tennis anymore, if there's something, a better way to repurpose them, absolutely. That's the kind of things we need to think about. If something's not being used, let's find something that the kids are used to.
Yeah, the high school is about to introduce pickleball on the tennis courts at the soccer field. They're looking at changing that over.
And we're also working on the lights in the gym. If anybody gets calls on the lights, if there's some problems with the wiring, Mr. Grantman met with electricians, so we're looking to try to get prices of what our best options are.
Okay. Commissioner Ashford.
Jim, can we have staff just take a look at the fencing? I know for years I've been saying that fence is rusted through parts, and it's more really a public safety concern in my eyes. And if we don't do something quickly, can we at least take down the damaged sections of fence? Because it's a real... At the tennis courts at the Washington Gym.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's holes rusted through it. I'd rather it not have a fence than have something.
The lights got severely damaged, the fence is in bad shape. Yes, we need to really look at that to figure out what we want to do with that area. Yes, sir.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
That old playground equipment that we taped off,
Yes, sir.
we probably need to try to get that out of there. We just tear that down and get rid of that because they're not using it and it could be a hazard for us, you know. So we may need to go ahead and get rid of that too while we talking about getting rid of some things. I mean, fixing up some stuff, some things that we need to get rid of that definitely.
We fixed one, Commissioner Langston, the one that was on the far right side, the small one. We actually found parts for it. They actually still made the parts for it. Go and take a look at it, see if that's what you're talking about. But the guys actually found parts for it. I think we got it fixed. The
We
actual,
put new platforms on all
yeah,
that. Yes, sir.
we actually found
Because
them.
they were dangerous.
Yeah, they were very dangerous. But take a look at it, see if we missed
Sorry
something.
for bringing it up.
No. We actually got that one fixed, we believe.
Okay.
Okey-doke. Next item.
Robert's Rules of Order. We briefly had a discussion on that last week, Mayor. Does that want to talk to you?
Yes, I think we all agreed that we at some point in time need to have some definitive structure of how we run our meetings and and Robert's Rules is a good starting place. I asked Ms. Charlotte to, and I specifically wanted to get a condensed version of it. There's the condensed version, Robert's Rules. It's Robert's Rules for Dummies. No reflection on any of my fellow commissioners, so we've all got a copy. We're going to review it. Commissioner Ashbrook has brought forth some things that might help condense it down a little more. So we will be working on that, keep it on the agenda for every meeting, and we won't have a quiz, but we need to, some point in time in the near future, have a definitive structure of how we're going to proceed with our meeting.
Mr. Mayor, would you be okay if I brought some policy ideas as far as parliamentary procedures to the commission to facilitate that discussion?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would certainly welcome that.
Yes.
The next item we have is in reference to a grant application with FDEP. We got wind of an application process to apply for septic to sewer. Apparently there's money out there, and the deadline is the 15th. Staff would like to get in an application. We're thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000 would maybe be an appropriate ask. We feel this would accommodate about 120 septic to sewer folks to be able to tie in. Based on that, they also asked for match money. Our thinking was to, if you get approval for the grant, to go ahead and waive the impact fees. What does this do? This would allow roughly 120 people, if we got the grant, to go out and tie in that are readily available, that have an existing home, to go ahead and tie into sewer, and relatively free of charge. Based on 120, if you waive the impact fees, your max would be about $342,000. And the idea is to, if you got the grant, to come to the board and say, hey, let's go out to bid to find a plumber, to make it turnkey, to go out there and have people sign up and tie these people in at a little bit of no work for city staff. So with y'all's blessing, we'll get an application in on the 15th and see what happens. Because there's a lot of money right now that's moving towards the septic to sewer to try to clean up the waterways.
And this grant is specifically for that purpose then? For sewer scenario? It's great, we need the customers. We certainly need that. So somebody want to make a motion to allow them to go out for that grant?
Question first, Mayor. I'll be happy
Go
to do
right
so.
ahead.
Is this located, is this to a geographic area, or is this anyone that could potentially hook up to our system?
At this point, what I would say is that anybody that's readily available. We have lots of lines all the way from the Cape, all the way to St. Joe Beach, all the way to White City. There are folks in different areas of town that either missed the initial sign up, or their septic systems failing after the storm. So I would say that I would make it anybody system wide, and then we got to come up with our criteria. You know, is it going to be first come, first served? Those type of things. But yes, I would say system wide.
So we're not planning on using this money to lay new pipe, to hook up new?
No, sir.
This is for existing?
The idea would be to turn it over to one contractor, one plumber, to come in there and just tie it in from the house, put it in the grinder pump, do the electrical work, and tie it into the main.
And I'm remembering back to when we did this out in Jones Homestead, and it seemed like it took forever just to get 50 people to sign up. You don't anticipate that to be a recurring issue?
Well, this will be a little bit different than we're trying to do away with all those costs, because right now they have to get a plumber to come do that install work. And because we were just doing mainly the main line, this will be a situation where it would actually physically come in there and tie it from the house out to the main.
Yeah,
So
this is a free
Turkey.
nuts deal, yes.
Prime example was years ago in St. Joe Beach. It was, I think it was $500, Mr. Grant, was it?
Yes, sir.
Somewhere along those lines, I think it would be very beneficial to be able to do that.
I'll make the motion to go after this.
Motion to allow staff to apply for the FDEP grant.
I'll second.
Second for Commissioner Lowry. Discussion.
I got one more question.
Okay.
But they'd have to be on septic.
Yes,
Or
sir.
had been on
Yes, sir.
septic.
They would have to be septic and go into sewer. Basically, the idea is that they're failing, or they want to get this out of the ground that way to help with the clean water. One question though, if we could, when we're filling out the grant, if we can get approval to go ahead, then we'll commit that we're gonna waive those impact fees if the grant is approved. That way we can put that in that application as our match portion.
Okay, you add that in your motion. Okay, you're second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed 5-0.
Okay, we'll get an application in. The last item we have is in reference to a small-scale fee waiver request from the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office, you're aware, bought the old bank building. The front lot is actually zone C1A and the back is actually R2B residential. The sheriff now is being a public entity, want to change the property over to public. That'll come before you at a later date, but the initial step is to work on the add to the paper before it goes to planning board of the commission, and they've asked a waiver of that $500 fee for that charge.
Okay.
Motion to waive the fee.
Who's that? Go ahead. Oh, is there a motion? Second. Okay. Motion by Hoffman, second by Langston. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 5-0. Anything else, Jim?
That's all I have.
Okey dokey. Mr. Grantland, it's your turn.
Yes, sir. Mayor, just one quick thing, just to update the board. I spoke with the bridge manufacturer last Friday for the bridge we purchased between Duder Park and Buck Griffin Lake. He anticipated it to be completed this week. So what that has caused us to do, if you've noticed, that we began our earthwork yesterday down there, and we're hoping to pour next week. So we're realistically looking at just a few weeks away from hopefully getting that bridge delivered and set.
Be great.
And they're going to give a price on the middle bridge?
Yes, sir. That bridge is looking like around 31,000.
The middle bridge?
Correct.
What was the first? What was the one?
26.
How much?
26.
Is it?
Middle bridge is longer.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything else for John? Okay, we'll go to Mr. Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, on the agenda, RFP 2019-02, I would like to still look over this a little bit longer. It's still in the review. If we can, we need a little more time before bringing a recommendation to you. That's fine.
So what, Larry, you're just gonna study these two to see what one may be best for us?
Yeah, we run some performance tests too, and we just want to make sure.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Just need a little more time.
Don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kevin, anything?
Just a quick update. We're in the discharge mode now, so we're discharged through November, and then I'll be shut down for a little more maintenance in December, and bring it back up in January again. But everything's going well.
So all your filters, you've all got all that done.
There are 1,008 total panels. We bought 618 the last go around of stainless. We bought 100 prior to that. So we still have some on inside one of the filters that we're going to have to go after again, but we'll get it this year sometime.
Okay.
So right now we're doing okay though. So we'll just keep chugging where we are.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, Mr. Mike, we got any money?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have money. I'm still working with insurance. They're asked us to wrap up our final request on insurance, so I'm working through those issues with them. And we're still working with FEMA on the process, and everything's still moving along. I don't have anything else other than that.
Mike, did the scout hut get added to that?
We put in a request for that, and I'm waiting for him to follow up with me on the AC unit and the roof. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. The city engineer.
Yes, sir. Good evening. No word yet from Duke Energy. Had to call in the big guns and ask Mr. Henderson to help me. I'm getting nowhere on the price for the lights, but so hopefully we'll get something.
Actually, I did not get to speak with him this afternoon. We were tied up in meetings. He may have came by, Mr. Small will, but yes, sir, I'll call him in the morning and see if we can get some help.
The road bond, I mean, the money has all been obligated. Y'all approved that. We're just waiting on a date from the contractor when they're going to come do Jetty Park and the patches that we discussed. A couple other projects are not on here. They're just updates. The gazebo bids are coming in on the 22nd of this month at Frank Bay Park. So your first meeting in December, hopefully we'll have something for you to consider. We've had 2 contractors pick them up, which is 2 more than last time, so that's all good. And then the Garrison Avenue, the second phase of Garrison Avenue, which is 16th to Madison, resurfacing that. We're going to submit those to DOT next week. They'll have a little review time, and then we'll get that advertised as well. That'll be coming up shortly. That was all I had.
Can we make sure on that 16th to Madison that any issues that we need to address, like the other part that we ended up with the bumps, make sure that compacted and so forth, so.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Anybody got any questions for Clay? All righty. Code enforcement.
Yes, sir, Mayor, I'll give you an update. Special Master RFQ 2019-02, we did re-advertise, and we did get 1 response back. If you'll flip to that, I gave a handout. We did open up on Friday from Mr. Mail Madison, did respond back to us. So you do have 1 in front of you tonight for consideration.
And that was the only one?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct? Okay.
So if it's a pleasure to the board to moving forward, what we need is your blessing to move forward with Mr. Albritton and myself to work through negotiation of a contract and bring it back to you for approval, if it's the wish of the board.
Okay.
Mayor, the only comment that I have is on page 2, right at the top, it says this should be the first page of the RFQ submittal. With that being said, I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ashbrook to accept Mel Madison as the special master and negotiate with the city manager and our attorney.
I'll second that. I'm glad we got somebody local.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Madison, you like to?
And this is for your benefit and Mr. Albritton's benefit. I have been retired for the last 14 months, and I'm on retirement status with the Florida Bar, and I have to file a petition. I've got it. I called them, they emailed it to me. I wasn't going to file it until I was sure that there was nobody else that applied, because if somebody else applied, I was going to withdraw. As long as you got 1, that's all you need.
We appreciate it.
So, and I called them back, and they said, once I paid the fee, the money, that's all they care about is the money, you lawyers. It'll only take a few days. So right now, I cannot sign a contract that says I'm an active member until I get readmitted or re-established as.
Our negotiation will be contingent upon.
Yeah, so I just want to let you know that. But I'm going to do that, maybe not tomorrow, but the next day.
Understood.
Make sure you don't have a change of heart.
Thank you. Well, okay, the motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. All right, he's gonna have a lot of work to do. Okey-doke, Police Department, Mr. Jake's here tonight representing the police.
We have nothing.
Yeah, okay.
Well, y'all don't have any questions.
Any questions?
Supposed to stand up and say that.
Okay.
We have nothing.
Thank you.
At the podium.
All right, this, okay, go right. Yes, sir.
I just want to mention that we do have a new police officer. Jake, what's his name?
We actually have 2.
Okay.
And if I would have thought about it, I would have brought the one that's working tonight. But we have Cheryl Morrison. She's got 22 years experience. 20 of her years were at Wakulla County Sheriff's Office. She was actually a shift commander, lieutenant over there. And we have a totally green officer. His name is Tyrese Hicks. And he's totally green. He's originally from Miami, Florida, via Georgia. He comes here, he lives in the community, and both of them actually live in the community. So we're glad to have both of them.
Absolutely.
So he'll be ready in about a year, and her first day by herself was yesterday. So
Thank you. Thanks. Ms. Charlotte, your report?
Yes, sir. From all reports, ghosts on the coast seem to be great. People were very happy to have it back downtown and enjoyed the evening from the reports that we have heard. The Christmas parade, I'm having people call and actually ask to be in it, want to know what they have to do to get an entry form, so that seems to be growing.
Keeper's quarters.
Page 12, Mr. Jim.
Mayor, what we have before us tonight is the Historical Society has been given a grant to help out with some of the upkeep and repairs after Hurricane Michael. We have a quote to paint both of the buildings. The wood repair's been done. Mr. Glenn Combs did a fantastic job over there. That's part of the grant that was done through the Historical Society, that they need to be painted. Right now, we have a commitment from the Historical Society grant to paint one of them, but what we're doing is asking if we could use some of the insurance money to paint the other buildings.
Ms. Linda Wood, the Operations Director for the Lighthouse Keeper's Quarters, is here if you have any questions.
I think we certainly need to repair what's been damaged, and especially if we have the money and insurance. Obviously, we do have the money, so I think it's a wonderful thing. If you'd like a motion, I'll entertain a motion for it. Okay. Motion by Commissioner Ashbrook.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Lowry to paint Keeper's Quarters and Eglin. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. Okay, does everybody understand that? Okay. Just further discussion on that. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 5-0. Anything else, Mr. Jim? You got anything else?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Charlotte? Anyone? Okay. We'll hear from citizens. Anybody in the audience like to come up? Come up, sir.
Robert Branch, Marvin Avenue. Main reason I'm interested in this meeting, took time to get to it, is the TDC taxes that's put on, is on the referendum. I heard no mention from let me start all over. Let me give some paper of that first, if I'm, can I?
Sure, yeah, pass them to the commission.
This is actually that's the TDC statute, and this is some minutes I pulled up 2 years back. I pulled up a lot later. But I wanted to, you may already have a copy of them, all y'all may have a copy. That's actually the TDC statute, actually how the fifth penny can be collected. And during this conversation that your lawyer presented, I heard no mention of any interlocal agreement, any binding, any interlocal agreement. So, in 2005, an interlocal agreement was made by the city of Fort St. Joe and the Gulf County Board of Commissioners with item number 7 stating the city and county shall match $600,000 each for the sports complex of 75 acres given to y'all by the St. Joe Company. That interlocal was reinstated in 2013 with 60 acres showing something happened in 15, and that's been discussed before. That was for the sole purpose of a recreational complex for the citizens of Gulf County and Fort St. Joe. That is a binding interlocal agreement we keep failing to remember. This fifth penny that y'all discussing was adopted on November 14th. 2013, when it was reinstated, amended. A year later, it was reinstated for the collection. That's some of what I turn in. That's items that I've actually pulled up stating the facts of what I'm speaking on. The purpose of funding this 60-acre field of greens on the binding interlocal agreement. This fifth penny was reinstated in early 2019 for another 5 years. So you own your 8th year of collecting this. The field of greens was the #1 priority. It talks about in that you got to have priority to collect it legally, unless I'm reading it wrong. That's actually the revenue part. was the #1 priority for this collection of the TDC tax I'm speaking of. Since the start of this collection in 2014, let's back up to 2014, no amount has been spent on this 60 acres that y'all own of this collection. None of it, what has been collected, none has been spent. Now, they record somewhere showing of that 3-year time frame what was collected. No amount has been spent, but it's being spent in other places. It's being spent in other parks, other property. We even buy golf courses with it. It is my understanding, some of you sit on this TDC board. There's 9 members on the board. Mr. Ashbrook, you may sit on it. I don't know. I could guess some of the other ones. I don't know for a fact. I could find out. It is my understanding some of y'all sit on it. You all, as elected officials, are obligated to read these Florida statutes I presented. It's your responsibility for the lawful procedure for levying and uses and enforcement of these taxes before you make any decisions on your collection. I notice that's the only interlocal agreement I can find. But this is facts I stated. Appreciate your time.
Very good. Very good. Good, great information, I might add. So, I would say if that's the case, we certainly need to look into it a little further. Mr. Albritton, you got to kind of think about that a little bit. You may want to look into it. I don't know what's happening in the interim between some of those back and forth, but I do know that I'd heard that there was an agreement way back in '04 before my time, but I heard about it. So anybody else hear about that agreement with the county?
I've heard it discussed, and I know that when we approached the county for information on was there a vote or not a vote, instead of, and I'm still confused, to be honest with you, if there was a vote or not. But
just 1 minute, let this man finish his statement.
What I did see, and we all received from the county, was a response that talked about the vote, if they took one or didn't take one, because we were trying to find the answer to that question through the public records request. And we got a letter from the county that said that they had taken a new vote to rescind the old vote that either they took or didn't take. But I just thought it was kind of ironic that they took a vote and it passed unanimously to not acknowledge the old vote if it did exist.
Actually, and we're talking about two different things. I'm afraid what you're talking about is the money that they set aside, like in the recent years, just for upgrading. And what Mr. Branch is talking about is something that happened 15 years ago. So, but it's all for parks still.
But it's all connected.
Yes, it is.
But the sad part about it is, based on the most current response from the county, to me, the message is clear that they will just rescind the vote from 2004 unless we do, in fact, have that interlocal agreement where we'd have, we'd have a lot better
You need to
argument.
find a signed interlocal agreement signed by the mayor and the chairman of the county commission.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Branch, you got one more comment I think you wanted to make?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Now, I've actually done a lot of research lately on that, and I pulled minutes that thick, and I threw a bunch of them in the trash because now a lot of them are meaningless. Like Mr. Hoffman said, if you don't have it in writing, you know. But what I'm trying to tell y'all is, in 2014, November of 2014, this 5th cent was adopted, developed for y'all's 60-acre field agreement. That's the reason the 5th cent was through in there. That's what I presented to her. Now, the date is on it, and it's not hard to find. Everything is on record. If Yeah. Now, there's 3 years that's been collected on that land out there, and nothing has been done with that money. No money has went back into it. Now, that is a fact. All this other from 2005 to 2019, like y'all, he said before, if it's not on, but I've got a copy of the interlocal agreement that's still binding that goes with y'all's 60 acres and your Florida statutes of how you collect that money. That's a fact. And that's not
You
too
got
hard.
a copy of the interlocal agreement signed by the mayor and
exactly. And
okay,
this,
you mind sharing that with our attorney?
I'll share it with him for free, but I'm not gonna give him one of my notes on it.
Yeah, no, okay, all right, he can find, he can find. Thank you,
Okay.
Rob.
I appreciate
it, yeah. Come right up.
Due to the fact that there was some discussion at the last meeting, what I took the liberty to bring is the second complaint that was filed, well, it wasn't filed, by Mike Dickey. And let me share with you a little bit about Mike Dickey.
Complaint against what? About what?
It was our complaint against the city and the county concerning the sports complex.
I thought we'd already.
No.
That's all-
Now let's go back to this, because the information that Mr. Branch is discussing is in this complaint. And it's documented in this complaint, and it says clearly. And that's what I don't understand. For example, after the meeting, the last meeting, I gave Mr. Adam here, Albritton, a copy of the vote from 2014. I was at that meeting for that fifth penny. I mean, as far as the interlocal agreement and the carryover from 2013, y'all have that. That's been submitted a number of times. So if you will just give me a moment to kind of just talk about this, what Mike put out of the 69 items that's in this complaint. And now I've given it to Mr. Kroll, because I think it's important that the city have this as a record, so everybody's on the same page as far as why the case went away, what was the plan, the communications between Kaylee, y'all's attorney, and Mike Dickey, and how this agreement came to pass.
And can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
What do you want us to do?
I want y'all to pay attention to this money that the county is collecting, and we act like beggars for that money. And we are providing tourists with a lot of items, restaurants, parking, garbage being carried away. We need our lion's share, Mr. Mayor. And it shouldn't just be out at the country club where I know the kids aren't going to be riding their bicycle too.
I agree with you.
And so let's get really solid and get interested in collecting and getting money for our lighthouse. Now, I kind of shamed Sandy Quinn, and Miss Charlotte here was able to prove to Mr. Quinn how much is being done down there and how much those folks are working hard to get that complex up and running. He's supposed to be giving us money for that. We can't continue to allow all that TDC money to flow north of the county. We gotta get our lion's share.
I think we all agree with that. We're not sure
Well,
how we
I
do it.
just want you to know that it talks about in this complaint, and you're gonna get a copy of this, and you need to read it. On number 5, 2005, Gulf County entered into an interlocal agreement. So it gives the information under that. Number 6, October 22, 2008. St. Joe County delivered a deed. Number 7, 2013, County and Port St. Joe executed an amendment and reinstated interlocal agreement, which again reiterated that the city and county shall continue to cooperate in a joint development for a sports complex to be located on approximately 60 acres donated by the city to the city from St. Joe Company. And then number 8, in 2014, Gulf County voted to apply a 1-cent sales tax that was added to bed tax for the purpose of a sports complex. Now, I don't know how many times we all have to come to this podium and challenge you men to get our lion's share. And again, it shouldn't be about popularity, Mr. Mayor. It should be about everyone trying to get with what is owed to us in this municipality. And as far as the Florida statute goes for TDC, it does have abilities to utilize those funds for infrastructure. And it clearly states that. So this is just getting really, come on now. Really, I'm begging you.
You don't have to beg us, we have to beg somebody else, I guess.
Well, you don't have to beg them. You need to stand up and be counted. You don't have to beg. You have a right to this, a right, and so do we.
Thank you. I got any comments? Okay. Anybody else like to be heard tonight? Okay, dokie, we've got, we'll start with, Chester, you slipped up here, okay, go ahead.
Chester Davis said I'm president of the Port St. Joe Project Area Coalition. I was hoping that we can start having some more conversations about how we're going to deal with the blighted area for North Port St. Joe, especially when we talk about parks and recreations and how we can highlight that area also that will bring some attraction, not only just to one section of town, but to the entire city. Back in the day when they was talking about the ballparks, I used to always talk about, well, why not use what's over there? And I think sometimes we are left out of the conversation as to how we can use some of the facilities that are already there. We talked about the tennis courts over there. Sometimes I think we need to highlight how we can bring some people to that area so it can be better used, especially when this area or another area is being filled out somewhere else. There's plenty of places out there, especially around that gym out there, that can be used for sports complexes and other things, entertainment. Right now, I've been trying to get people to come to Port St. Joe for some entertainment use at the gym, but I need to know when the gym will be ready to hold that. Got some groups out of Tallahassee that's willing to come, youth groups that's willing to come and play and do some things that will bring some attention to the entire area. So I'm just hoping that we can have a conversation that would include, North Port St. Joe as we did tonight about some of the things that we have vacant over there. That place around that gym, it has plenty of space for sports. We just need to bring some attention to it so that we all can, kind of bid into it or buy into it to the point that it'll be recognized and people will want to come to it rather than it being just in a blighted area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Commissioner Langston, I'm going to start down there with you.
I just want to go back to what I was talking about the trash and the wipes and the furniture. If we don't try to get control of this ourselves and try to just let people know to please stop throwing this stuff out, I mean, it's just gonna continue, and people gonna get upset because, I mean, the city's gonna charge you for picking this stuff up. And I just want to say, let's try to get control of this so that ourselves, and so that we don't have to depend on anybody to come and pick this stuff up. It's just some places is just ridiculous. I mean, you got, I mean, it was, we were riding through the alleys and I couldn't believe it, because, you know, I normally don't ride through there because it's really not a good place to ride through, but you got areas in the alleyways that people just throwing stuff on top of people's fence, on top of their fences in the backyard stacked up, and it's just unbelievable. And they expect the city to come pick it up and move it for free, and we don't operate like that. I mean, it's been over a year since the storm. We gave you a time frame to get this stuff out, then came back and gave you another time frame to get it out, and we're still putting it there. So let's just try to help ourselves. That's all I'm asking, because I'm letting you know before you start ringing my phone off, they're gonna charge you for picking this stuff up. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ashbrook?
I've got nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Lyle?
I just want to reiterate kind of what Commissioner Langston said. I've got phone calls regarding some of that too, and I mean, the city's going to be fair. I've been told it's people are dumping on other people's lots and vice versa, and the bottom line, the city is going to be fair when it comes to those fines. But Commissioner Langston, thank you for taking the reins on that. I mean, it's we've got to deal with it. We need to help ourselves. That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Hopkins?
I have two things. One is also in what we were talking about currently. And I've spent some time riding around town, the entire town, and I can, in my opinion, the garbage issue is citywide. It may be worse in one street or block, but there's even businesses currently that have put things on the side of the road. Drive down First Street, and you know, you struggle with, okay, do we go and clean it up? Do we entertain the idea of an amnesty day and get this stuff picked up? And I threw that out to a couple people, my wife for one, and she quickly said, well, if you do that, everybody's going to expect it from that point forward. And that may be the case. But then you have to struggle with, well, do we clean up the city, or do we take the slow road of picking it up one at a time? The city, we'd still be doing it. I still like the idea of going out for bids and hiring a company that would like to do that type of job, and we charge them a fair amount to pick it up. I don't think it's fair to put that on the city workers. We just keep on creating more and more for public works to do. We're trying to get out of that business. So I'm in full support. However, we decide to get this garbage picked up on the side of the road, the sooner the better. And I know that Commissioner Langston has talked about a cleanup day. I think it needs to be citywide, where we maybe just pay for the containers to be dropped off at different locations. And I know construction people are going to fill them up. That's just part of it. But if we can encourage other people to pick the garbage up, and I think that might be a way. But we really are at the point where we should focus on getting this garbage off the streets. And code enforcement is going to have to step up and help us with, especially some of the businesses that know good and well we don't pick that up. The only other thing I had is I wanted to update. I meant to ask you a minute ago, John, I forgot. What is the time frame or scheduling for getting the work done on the bathroom at Reed Avenue? Bill told us today in the meeting that he was waiting on some work from the city as far as sewage lines.
We are actually going to install that line, and just that line, within the next couple of days for Bill, and Bill can proceed with this project.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
But just the line.
And
that's all, his plumber does the rest.
Right, yeah,
Right.
yeah. As, you know, you've heard me say that train is still not left the station, and I want to know why. So I didn't want to blame the city if we need to blame Bill, so we'll figure it out. Thank you.
We'll have our end done, and we can go from there. How about that?
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Lowry, you had another item.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to ask Jim, have we heard anything regarding Capital City moving or is
Good
anybody?
point. No, sir, I have not, and I believe the 1 year ends the middle of this month, and no, sir, I have not heard anything. Not since last week.
Will you reach out to them and see what their plan is? And I mean, we budgeted that money, and you know, if they are, I know we had a vote, but that's $38,000 that we're missing out of this budget. So I mean, if there's a way we can bring it back up, I'd like to see if we can negotiate.
I will reach out to them and see if I can find out what their intent is.
Okay, well, that it?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
The only thing I had was just to echo Commissioner Langston, Commissioner Hoffman, and applaud both of them. And we all, I think we all know that we have a problem, and I would actually go as far as looking at hiring an independent or go out for an RFQ for independent for a specified window of time, one time, let everybody know this is really it this time, and we really mean it this time. And so Jim, if you have anybody, any ideas, John, if y'all could get together and maybe put something together and just bring it back to us, and let's talk about it, and then we'll get with Mr. Mike, and he can scrounge around and see if we can come up with the money and go for it. We've still got grants that we're pursuing, and I do believe we're going to get some that will help us in that regard. And so let's look into it. It doesn't hurt to ask. So that's all I have.
Man, if I just throw something at you, if you can get your citizens to start separating that stuff, then that should be their duty. It'll be a lot easier on whatever people you bring in to pick it up. But the citizen needs to separate that stuff. That should be their duty, their responsibility. And if they don't, then it should be a harder fee for those. But it has to be separated. You can't just go by and hire anybody just to pick it all up. It won't work that way. It has to be separated.
And what do you mean, what needs to be separated?
Well, you have white goods versus yard debris, and then you have construction debris. It needs to be separated in those three categories. Your garbage, household garbage is not a problem.
No.
But it's when you have your white goods versus your construction debris and your yard debris and stuff like that, and iron and metal that need to be broke down. If you're going to hire somebody to come in and do that, it still has to be broken down.
Okay. All right. We'll have to consider all that. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. All right. Thank you all for coming.